Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us today. The name of this video series is called The Bend, and it was initiated because I have a favorite quote that says, "The end of the road is not the bend in the road unless you fail to make the curve." So we're going to talk about how to make that curve, how to network today, and I'd like to introduce you to my guest, who is David Pinkley. And we're going to talk a little bit about initiating conversation with someone you don't know and ask you, would you like to have more control over when and where you find that next career opportunity? Is growing your network something you know you should do, but you really don't know where to start? So if you answered yes to any of those, then we're here for you today. My guest calls himself an investor in people because for the last 20 years, he's built his career helping other people build theirs. He started his career as an accountant and CPA before becoming a recruiter and a job placement expert. Started his own recruiting firm while living in Hong Kong and established offices in New York and in Charlotte. Over the last 2 decades, he's placed hundreds of professionals into new jobs, negotiated over $25 million in salaries and compensation. In addition to that, he's personally coached and written resumes and LinkedIn profiles for over 4,000 people who want to take their career to the next level. He's a graduate of the University of Michigan. He's also a globetrotter, having traveled 44 states and 29 countries. Joining me today from Charlotte, North Carolina to talk about growing your professional network is recruiter, motivator, and speed limit violator, David Pinkley. Well, David,
too many tickets. Way too many tickets.
I'm right there with you with that speed limit violator, and now we've confessed it on the internet. So we put targets on our backs, or at least on our license tags.
That's right.
So how is your day going today? How are you doing in the COVID economy? And I'm sure people are looking for jobs.
You know, it's exciting, right? You know, this time is filled with uncertainty, and a lot of folks, a lot of us are like just riddled with doubt and uncertain about what's going to happen. And if you're uncertain about your work, or maybe you're out of work and uncertain about getting the next job, it can be a little daunting, or very daunting. It can be really trying. And I love what I do, and I try with every call, every email, every referral, every person to try to give them some hope, give them something to realize that this is just a small period of a long life and a long career. So
exactly.
I'm doing
just
that every day.
Just that bend in the road, right? Just that bend in the road.
The bend in the road, exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Mm-hmm. Well, you and I have had some conversations and have had some emails back and forth. And one of the things that I think we both agree on is the importance of a network when you are trying to change careers or make a move in your current career path. In your history, I mean, obviously you switched from being a CPA to an HR recruiter. Tell me how you made that pivot for you and did a network story. Was that involved in that?
Well, you know, I was fortunate at the ripe age of 26 years old to be laid off of my very first job after I had graduated from Michigan and spent 5 years there. And I didn't see it coming, and it was a recession, and I lost my job and had no plan B at all. And very quickly learned that if I don't take control over my career, you know, no one else is going to do that. And I was really fortunate to be able to take a few names and relationships that I had built up at the company that I was laid off from, and network my way into my next job. And off I went. And the process of learning how to move into recruiting from being an accountant was a very big leap of faith. There was no network involved other than I got a phone call, a recruiting call, just cold, from somebody who said, I have a job for you. And I said, I'll take you to lunch. I want to do what you do. So can you imagine me being a CPA, right? So I was fortunate in my early mid-20s to recognize what I was good at and not good at. And so that was some 20, 30 years ago. And I'm fortunate to have found a career that really kind of works to my skill sets.
Yeah. I'm like you. I was very lucky in my career. I grew up in the restaurant business. My family, I always joked that said they were firm believers in child labor. They put my brother and I to work as young children, but I wanted to be in the veterinary business. I wanted to be a veterinarian. And then after 4 years of undergrad, I decided I didn't want to be a veterinarian, but I love the business part of it. And after running some restaurants and some retail stores, I made my way into the veterinary profession, where I have spent the rest of my career. And that ability to pivot kind of back into where I wanted to be originally has certainly given me a career that I have enjoyed for more than 25 years. And I've tried to coach a lot of people along the way that the veterinary medicine is a career. If you're not a veterinarian, there is other places in veterinary medicine that you can be. And I know that you and I actually met through a mutual friend who you helped find a job in the veterinary field as working for a veterinary pharmaceutical company. And so there's a lot of opportunities there, but I think people sometimes will self-limit because they really don't know what's available out there, and they never look outside the box they've put themselves in. And sometimes there's a little fear too. So we were going to talk a little bit about the barriers that people put in place for themselves to go out and to meet people that maybe they're interested in a job in that company. So what do you see as a barrier that people have to just stepping up to that stranger and saying, hey, I'd like to know about you?
It's really scary, really, to think about doing that for a lot of people. I'm happy to share a barrier or two. I did want to call out, though, Deb, that our relationship, this very call that we're doing together today, is based on you're like a fourth generation referral. The person that referred me to you was a referral. The person that referred me to Rachel was a referral. And that person was referred by somebody else. So this is a fourth generation link in the networking chain. And so this is very much the power of how this stuff works.
It's like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon, right?
That's right. Exactly. So a barrier, I think one of the biggest barriers is just shyness. Sometimes people, when they get into a large setting, or when it comes to sort of just expressing themselves, we tend to all clam up. It's comfortable to be with people that we're safe and secure around and whom we already know. And, introducing yourself to a stranger or reaching out to shake somebody's hand and start cold it can be just a little bit risky, and it takes some vulnerability to do that. And I think many people oftentimes will kind of revert back to that as, I really can't do this, I'm not good at it. And they're on the receiving end of other people's network, perhaps. But I think that's a big one. And I think from a career planning, career management standpoint, probably the second biggest barrier is just this notion of, I don't have the time, I'm too busy, I'm too caught up in today's work, today's deadline. I got another at the end of the week. I've got another project next week. My boss needs this tomorrow, and we never really have an opportunity because we're always too busy. And this is like one of so many things in life where we all know we should do it, but we never really carve out the time and commit to do it. So I hope that the folks watching today have an opportunity to sort of rethink, making a longer term investment in networking. I'll give you a really good story. This is a person that I met a year ago, and she is an executive at a company in the Southeast area and in the United States. And she got her current job from a referral through someone she had met 12 years earlier. 12 years
Wow.
earlier.
Wow.
She met this person once at a conference, never had any more conversation with this person. And that person ended up interacting with somebody who ultimately hired her 12 years
That's
later.
amazing. That is amazing.
So,
But
yeah,
I've seen that. I've certainly seen that in my career. And I agree with you that, you know, you make these connections with people and then there's really no motive to doing it. It's just, I find people very interesting and I'll just go up and talk to people. And one of the things about being shy, at one point in my youth, I was shy and then I obviously got over that. But it's, you don't have to be the great conversationalist. You just need to be a good listener. And the people's favorite thing to talk about is themselves. So if you would just ask them, tell me what you do and tell me, you know, how you got that job or tell me, you know, what led you to that career, then you don't have to say another thing because people will just talk and talk and talk. And you can just listen and just, you know, gather that information. But it is fascinating to me how people move into their careers um, and I do have a genuine interest in how they do that and what happens there. But then kind of keeping those folks in the back of your mind. One of my friends calls it her back pocket people. So if there's a client that she has, she's an IT professional, if there's a client that she has that's struggling with communication, she says, you know, I'll just pull you out of my back pocket and you're my referral. And I believe that that's an important thing to have, especially like me, I'm a consultant and I'll tell people I don't know everything, but I know a lot of smart people.
right.
So I have this inventory here of brilliant people that I can just call on and say, hey, you know, I have some work for you for this client. And people certainly appreciate that. They appreciate the referral and the referrals come back. They absolutely come back.
Yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about just how to network with people, because I think sometimes people think, oh, I just can't walk up to strangers. But, you know, even in veterinary medicine, we have clients who come in who are from all different professions. And there's a great story that one of my friends told me. She was working in a department store and she had a customer and she sold him like an entire house of bedding, 3 bedrooms, all kinds of stuff. And he was so impressed with her customer service because he couldn't get it in his car. And she volunteered to put it in her car, follow him to his house, and help him unload it. And so because of her over-the-top service for him, he gave her a job as the manager of Loomcraft, which is this huge company that this building must have been more than 30,000 square feet. And she just, because of her service, got to be this manager. But it's just that reach out, that going the extra mile, that, you know, that people observe you and the service that you give or the network that you have or what other people say about you, and they keep that in their back pocket. But let's talk about like those ABCs of how to network. If you've never done networking before and this is an intimidating thing, and maybe you're going to a conference and there's peers around you, and maybe even some people who are on that speaker podium that you'd like to meet, you know, what advice would you give to people to just to go for it?
You know, I always say you don't have to be Oprah Winfrey, right? You don't have to be this magnetic, dynamic person. You know, you just be you. I mean, I think a lot of times we put these expectations really high for what is required to do something that's really pretty simple, very just human, which is just connecting with someone, being curious about who they are. It doesn't take a lot. So the ABCs, you know, we'll try to break it down real easy for anyone watching. So the A is just always allow yourself to take the risk, right? I really think, you know, when you're in a group of a large group of people or at a conference, you know, you see somebody that you want to introduce yourself to, and there's about 1 nanosecond in your mind that you're going, no, I can't. Well, I don't know what to say. And you talk yourself out of it in the very first second or nanosecond. And I think the idea of allowing yourself to take the risk is to just be willing to put yourself in a position of being vulnerable. And most people, they don't lose their life over it, right? But
Right.
I think that, growth occurs in outside of our comfort zone, and we probably get too comfortable in our comfort zones. And if you just stretch it a little bit, you'll be amazed at the value that or the fun and the opportunities that could come out.
Yeah, just take that deep breath, right? And just say, I'm going to do it, and jump in the water.
Deep breath. We should add a D to the ABCs.
That's right. Deep breath.
So the B in the ABCs is to be mindful of how you can help others, right? So sometimes I think we associate networking with, I need something. I need to ask somebody for help, and I'm not really comfortable asking for help. And, I don't want to ask somebody for a job and that kind of thing. And so perhaps we talk ourselves out of it because we don't want to necessarily be in the position of asking. But there's the other side of the coin, which is the person to whom you might want to introduce yourself to may have a need that you can help them with. And sometimes we get just a little bit caught up in our own thing that we forget it's a two-way dialogue, a two-way relationship, and each side has a need there. I don't know what sort of stations you listen to, streaming stations for music in your car, or if you still listen to the radio, but there's one station that we all listen to. It's called WIIFM, which is What's in It for Me. What's in it for me?
Yes.
And I think we have to remember that the other side has a need too, and they want to know how perhaps you can help them. So be mindful of how you can help others. That's the B.
Yeah, I've often met people, and then as we were having a discussion about what they were doing, I would say, you need to meet this person. And I would just take them by the arm and go over here and introduce, and I've often abandoned them and just left them over there talking to each other.
Exactly.
But that's okay. That's okay, because in my mind, I think I like to matchmake. And so putting people together that can complement each other, and I can see a place for both of them to benefit, for me is fun. And that's the greatest part of networking, is just to be able to be that person that knows people and that is helpful to people. And eventually you kind of get that reputation as the person to call, because you're the person who knows, and so, yeah, that's a benefit too. Especially if you're me, a small business person, you want people to be calling you for stuff.
Right. Yeah. Hopefully
like
they're calling you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I know you have a massive network, Deb. I know you're so well regarded in the community, in the veterinarians practice community. And if people don't know your expertise now, they should at this point in time. So
well, I appreciate
doing what you're
that.
doing. I've heard great things. I've heard great things about you.
Thank you. I do love what I do. Now, you mentioned too about creating a habit for doing this.
Yeah. So this is the C's in ABCs, right? So A is allow yourself to take a risk. B is to be mindful of how you can help others. And C is to create a habit, right? Now, if I'm not fortunate enough to have you, Deb, in the room where I know you're going to connect me with somebody that you've kind of already figured out I'm going to get on with, then I have to take it upon myself. Wouldn't it be great to be able to hire you just to come to all the networking meetings? And I know I can rely on you to make all the connections. But outside of that luxury, then you want to do the C in the ABCs, which is create a habit. And creating a habit, again, sounds overwhelming, but it doesn't have to be that hard. We just do one thing a week, just one small thing a week is all it takes. So I'm going to confess something that I don't share very publicly, which is I've set this ridiculous, stupid goal for this year, the year 2020, to do 30,000 push-ups.
Oh my gosh.
I'm going to do 30,000 push-ups in the calendar year of 2020.
Oh wow.
And I don't say that to brag, but simply to say that why would I do that to myself? Like what a moron could I possibly be to do this? So, but the way that I broke it down is it's 100 push-ups for 300 days.
Mm-hmm.
So there's 365 days in a year. I can miss 65 days, which is basically 2 whole months.
Yeah.
There's still 300 days left. I can do 100 push-ups in a day
Yeah.
for 300.
Yeah.
So what it reminds me of is any goal can be achieved if you just break it down into little small segments.
Right.
And so the C of the ABCs, create the habit, is just do it once a week. That's all you have to do. Just reach out to someone that you already know, that you haven't
Mm-hmm.
connected with in a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And you can do it in a way that doesn't require a ton of vulnerability. But if you do that once a week, hey, that's 52 relationships in a year.
Yeah.
And then you can start to really grow something.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. Think about the people that you know or that have come in and out of your life. What is that? There's an old adage that says people come into your life for a reason or a season, and so they do kind of drift in and out. And then there are the people who are always in your life that are your longtime, the rocks there. But it's a simple habit to get. Somebody asked me one day how I got 14,000 connections on LinkedIn, and I said 2 or 3 at a time, because I would connect with people that I knew, and then I would look through the people that they knew, and I would say, oh, I would like to know that person, and I would connect with that one. And it was very specific about being in the veterinary space too, because I wanted to have a network in my profession.
Right.
And so it just kind of built up, and then people ask me and I say yes, and here we go. And so I have connections all over the world, and it's a fun thing. Not that I reach out to those 14,000 people all the time, but I will just, if I find somebody that I find their business is interesting, I will send them a message and say, hey, I'd like to chat with you one day just to find out about what you do. And I find that very interesting, and it's been wonderful. I've talked to veterinary social workers in Canada. I talked to a man yesterday who is starting a pet food supplement company that he has done great research on in the veterinary space. He's actually used boarded nutritionists to get good quality out there. And so I like I said, I find how people get where they are a fascinating thing. And those are all maybe guideposts for us to use when we're working on our own professions, as to, well, so-and-so did it this way, maybe I could follow that same path.
Right.
Yeah.
What you just shared is like the definition of integrity, Deb, because, here you are, we're doing this webinar about networking and trying to help others do it. But you're doing it from a place of authority, meaning you've actually done this for years, and you've reached out time and time again, one person at a time on LinkedIn, and just were curious, and you're like practicing this stuff daily. And over time, we don't hold ourselves out to be networking experts. We're just sharing very much from our own experience of what we've done and what's worked, and we want to bring other people into it. So I really like the fact that we're talking about a topic that you and I live day in and day out.
Yes. Yes.
And anybody can really get there over time.
Well, one of the things that I do I'm a member of an association of consultants, and we do have new members come in, and every time we have a meeting, we have the list of all the attendees, and I will purposefully go through and try to meet the people, especially the new people, because I was new. And it's an intimidating group, because if you go in there, and these are all national speakers, they're the ones who write the textbooks, and you're thinking, oh my God, this is an intimidating thing to do. So I try to make it a little easier for people to become comfortable. And I've managed to know a lot of you, and they're great. They're fantastic people. And I really enjoy, it's one of the joys of my life to go and get to hang out with these folks, because they have such good hearts. But, it is an effort. It is an organized effort to say, let me go and meet these people. I haven't met this one. Let me go find this person, or let me go speak to this person, even if it's just to say hello. It's good to see you. How's your business going? And then on to something else, So just, paying attention to that. Now, one of the things that I have kind of monitored over the years is my LinkedIn profile, because if you're going to connect with a bunch of people, you better have that cleaned up, right? When you said I have looked at 4,000 and helped people with 4,000 LinkedIn profiles, I thought, oh my word, that's a lot of writing. Because I write articles and stuff, and I thought, oh, how intense was all this writing? So tell me, like, you kind of see the best and the worst. What do you are coaching people to do for their LinkedIn profiles.
Yeah, probably the best place to start when it comes to networking. So we're talking about networking, and then LinkedIn is a subset, just one
Mm-hmm.
channel, one way to approach networking. And probably the one thing that I would just suggest to anybody who's watching is, look, it's 2020, right? In the world has certainly gone online. We've learned this from the coronavirus pandemic and quarantines, and you really should be on LinkedIn. You really want to have at least a profile that's somewhat current and updated. A lot of people just think, oh, it's another social media site. Oh, it's just more noise in my world. But no, this one's a little bit different. It's very different
Mm-hmm.
because it literally is accruing value to
Mm-hmm.
your career long term. And so, I think there's like 600 and some odd million people on LinkedIn, and like over 350 million Americans, just people who live in the United States. And so I think the basic advice as it relates to LinkedIn is just have a profile. And then, if you have a profile or you check it, let's say once a month, doesn't have to be much. You want to do three things, basically, just the three basic, sort of starting points for LinkedIn. You want to have a little profile picture, a little headshot. Like LinkedIn, their statistics say that your profile is, get this, 27 times more likely to be looked at just if you have a picture in there. That's it.
Exactly.
If you just put the picture in,
Mm-hmm.
people will naturally be curious, right? And the second thing that you want to have is just a headline at the top of that, which is just simply your title or maybe a word or two, what kind of work you do or what it may be. It doesn't have to be, Shakespeare. It doesn't have to be professionally written even, just something really simple to help people understand what you do, because that's how I can find you, right? So
Mm-hmm.
having a picture is huge. Having a headline is really important. And then sort of the last thing that you can do, which is kind of a plus, not required, but have that background image in the top of your profile. Having a background image, as the saying goes, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? And you can have a picture of anything you want back there. It's just essentially kind of like like it's just at the top of your profile, which is just outlining a little bit about kind of who you are. And you can put everything from where you've been on vacation to, a picture of your home or a picture of your cubicle at work or a picture of you with your best friends. It doesn't really matter, but it just communicates something about you that it may help if people do see your profile. So
Right, right.
again, those
Well,
things don't take.
for myself, when you said that about the picture, that really resonated with me because people will ask to connect with me. And if I don't see their picture and they don't have anything in their profile, I decline it because I feel like, first of all, I'm concerned that it's some kind of a scam,
Yeah,
and you're concerned about that. And if they don't have any connections and if they are, they look shady, you want to watch that. But no, people who are legitimate on there will have a fleshed out profile. They will tell you about where they've worked. They will maybe post articles that they have published or, projects that they have worked on. And so you really can get a good feeling of who people are, what their skill set is, and where they went to college and, what their
right,
education is. It surprised me at first because I've been on LinkedIn. Obviously, I've been on there a long time. That people did not think that it was anything more than like a Facebook page, but it
right.
is certainly more than that, and it's a great source of information because people are really focused, especially for a business person. People are focusing on business articles and not nonsense. So you
Right.
really have a good a database there to search and find out some wonderful stuff there.
I think it's
Um,
the platform self-polices really well. So
mhm,
the platform really doesn't tolerate and allow people that will spam things, or it's easy to call that person out, or LinkedIn will take them down. I mean, LinkedIn
mhm,
really does well to keep the network true and as pure as can possibly be, that the people that are sending out invites and so forth are real people and have a real legitimate reason for connecting.
mhm,
It used to be, depending on your age, there used to be a time, in which it was kind of weird to be online. It was like, well, why would I want to put all my education and work history on? That
mhm,
seems a little strange, right? And certainly over the course of the last 15 years, that mindset has changed. And I would say probably by 2013, 2014, so that's going back 5, 6 years. If
Mhm.
you didn't have a profile online, then you're asking, what's wrong with this person? Like, what are they
Right.
hiding? Why are they not
Yes.
transparent about who they are?
Yes.
So it's gone the complete opposite
Mhm.
direction, which is, again, real simple sort of takeaway from this webinar for anybody who's watching.
Mhm. I used to make the remark because people would say, well, I don't, I want people to show up in person and I don't want them to apply online. And I went, look, this is the digital age. If you are not capable of filling out an application online and answering a screening test online, then chances are really good you're going to struggle working with the technology in my business. And I think that's the same kind of principle with LinkedIn. If people are not thinking about being a business person, about being socially astute online, then it's a negative for them and for their career growth. And the other thing, I think that we certainly, I have done this before, is you are searchable and people will reach out to you. And so if you are looking to change a career, sometimes it will come to you just through search if you have made that profile appropriate and your profile is interesting to people, and maybe that referral, that 12-year-old referral, I bet you they were on LinkedIn and that's
Yes.
how they found them, right?
That's exactly right. Right.
Mhm.
So we've been talking about networking in general. We've been talking about the benefit to your career, just sort of knowing lots of people and a benefit to personally as well, because you never know who you're going to meet.
Mhm.
And then there's sort of like the career job seeker who
Mhm.
really does want to deploy some of these networking techniques that we've been talking about. And
Mhm.
yeah, absolutely. If you're looking for a job, if you're really close to leaving your job, you're frustrated in your current job, you're out of a job, you've lost your job because of COVID or whatever it is,
Mhm.
there's like, you need to be, this is not an option, you need to be on LinkedIn. You absolutely need to be on LinkedIn. There's
Mhm.
20 million jobs on that platform.
Yes.
And again, as we said, it doesn't take a ton, and you don't need to invest tons of time to complete a profile with your current job and title and a few things about what you've done and a little bit of your history and where you went to school. But the benefits of that little bit of time are just immense, and it's also durable, which is to say, you're on LinkedIn today because you need a job. But once you're on LinkedIn, once you have a profile that's somewhat updated, well, that stays out there. And after you land in your next job, um, anybody could call you up in 6 months or a year or 2 years from now and suggest you take another job for more
Yes.
money or better title or an advancement. So,
Yes.
so the
Yes.
investment you make in the immediate term has a long-term implication, like our friend with the 12-year referral, right?
Yeah. Yeah. That's an amazing story. Now, I know that you also write resumes, and we are not going to talk about that because we didn't plan on talking about it, but I'd be a little remiss if I didn't ask you about it. Um, what do you think are some of the biggest mistakes that people make in writing their resumes or their CVs?
Yeah, I mean, it goes back to some real basic things. Uh, when it comes to writing resumes, probably the biggest mistake that I see is just punctuation, spelling errors, just not being really thorough
Mhm.
in polishing it. Look, we're all human, right? So it may never get to 100%, but it should be like 999% perfect. And I think a lot of people, we get so caught up in what we're going to say, and we're just typing into our resume form, and we look at it over and over and over again, and we just look right past all of
Yeah.
the errors.
Yeah.
And so, without a doubt, my all-time number one resume writing tip is to take your resume and have it independently read by someone else. They could be a family member or a friend, or they may be somebody who's totally, objective and doesn't necessarily have the pressure of being nice about telling you how great it is. You probably want
Mhm.
somebody just to look at it who will truly give you the feedback that you want, because when you're writing your resume, the idea is, well, I need to sort of talk about myself, and not a lot of people are comfortable doing
Yeah.
that. They
It's
don't
really
want to
strange to do.
self promote.
Mhm.
No, it's so hard.
Yeah.
And we get so caught up in the challenge of doing that we get sometimes we lose sight of the bigger picture and the overall message that's important to the reader of the resume,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Right.
So those are some things that I think are important. Definitely want to have it proofread. And this is your moment to take credit for truly what you've done and what you bring to the table.
Yes.
So, take it. I think there's a vast difference between somebody who's confident, who's willing to share and talk about what they have done, and somebody who's just an egomaniac and just wants to take credit for everybody, right? There's a big difference there.
And there is a difference. Yeah, there is a difference. As the hiring manager, because for many, many years, that's exactly what I did. I can tell you that punctuation and attention to detail mattered tremendously to me because I was in a medical profession and detail mattered. And,
Right.
and if you are not paying attention, you could hurt something. I mean, you could give the wrong dose of something. You could lose some information that was vital to the health of an animal. So that attention to detail mattered. The other thing that I've always coached managers to do is give me numbers. Prove to me what you've done, because you can say, I did, I'm a this, this, and this, but when you can say, I grew this business X amount of percentage over this many years, and here's what it did, then that's a little more substantial than just saying, I'm good at my job. Well, we all think we're good at our job, but numbers don't lie. And you're ex-CPA, so you're agreeing with me because
Exactly.
it's a numbers thing, especially if I'm going to hire you for that kind of work. So, the networking thing, and it is all just playing in together. I just kind of feel like during the COVID situation, there's obviously a lot of people out and unemployed. I do feel like a lot of those will get pulled back in as soon as things clear up a little bit. And we're seeing that already.
Yep.
I think some surprising numbers actually have come back in. But I do think the landscape is going to change and maybe that work will look different. So you kind of have your ear to the ground in listening to these job positions as a recruiter. Do you see work changing in the future, more work from home positions? Tell me what you're seeing out there.
Yeah, I definitely see a lot more work from home opportunities. I think some of the large technology companies have already announced that they don't expect any of their employees to come back to the office before the end of 2020. And even more amazing than that, there are a couple of large technology companies who have flat out said, we're going remote permanently. Like, you won't have to come back to work at all in terms of specifically, coming to an office. So without question, this pandemic has accelerated a lot of changes that were already underway, but we're too subtle and we're too slow in the coming. And now they're become very, very clear. I mean, it's amazing how fast we've all adapted to something like Zoom, right?
It's like 10 years got compressed into 10 weeks.
Exactly.
It has been incredible. It has been incredible. But
really,
it does
really
say something to the adaptability of humans. And thank goodness for technology, because without it, we certainly, if you look back to the recession of 2008, we didn't have the capabilities that we have now for work from home. And that was a lot of it. I mean, there were people who could have probably worked from home if it had been possible to do it at that time. So I think we're very fortunate that technology has advanced to the point where so many of us are sitting here talking to each other, just like we're in the room together. Thank you to Zoom and other platforms and technologies. In veterinary medicine, we're seeing telemedicine, which would just kind of had its birth maybe 2 years ago. Some people have been doing it much longer, but just, kind of as a buzz that was out there. And now our patients are all in the parking lot. So we're trying to figure out ways to treat them without seeing their owners face to face. And it has been a compression of that new platform and new technology that's coming out there. I think that with every great disruption comes great change. Yeah. And we are certainly disrupted right now. It's almost like what else can happen? and I hope nothing else, because uncle already, right? And I think most of the people who are in business are feeling that same way, and certainly people who are questioning whether their jobs are going to come back, or, if they do go back to work, are they going to get sick?
Yeah,
So having
I
this
think
conversation about the network, I think, is an important thing for people, just to have a strategy to
right.
say, let me start building a strategy. Even if you have a job right now, that doesn't mean that things won't change because of this compression, and that our recession that we are in is going to continue longer than we think, no matter what Congress says, because periodically there are recessions.
Right.
This is there has to be a market adjustment, and we were due for it anyway. So it's just kind of, again, it got compressed into 10 weeks period of time.
Right.
So we'll see how we come out of it.
I think this is a moment for people to recognize that they really do have more control over their career than they think. And sometimes, the safety of having a job and a paycheck, and, it's a familiar commute, and the people are familiar and so forth. And, we can kind of like convince ourselves like, we've got security, and then something like this happens, and all of a sudden we go, oh my Lord, the ground isn't nearly as stable underneath me as I thought, at least from my career standpoint.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that the power of what we've been talking about all this entire conversation about networking and being proactive and meeting people and connecting with folks and finding ways to mutually benefit each other, that is, like, I think going forward, just a non-negotiable. It's going to be an essential skill set to have going forward, because if it's not you who's looking for a job right now, it's likely that somebody else is, and you would want them to help you if you were in their position, and vice versa. And so we have to, we really respect, small businesses, medium-sized businesses, large businesses for employing so much of our country, but we're also kind of recognizing that, all those kinds of jobs, no matter how big your company is, are not always permanently secure. But the one thing that you can be secure in is taking control of your own career destiny. And this is a really great opportunity to prove that out.
Yeah. I'm on a lot of social media groups, and I'll see veterinary team members who maybe they're in a bad situation. Maybe their boss is a poor leader, or there's even bullying and abuse there, but yet they stay. And it's kind of astounded me as to why. And it really is a couple of things. First of all, mentally, it's called learned helplessness, that we kind of get to this point where we're so mentally fatigued by constant abuse that we can't think our way out of it.
Right.
And the other one is fear of the unknown. Well, maybe if I go somewhere else, it would be worse. Mm-hmm. But, maybe it's a little less convenient than this one is, or maybe, they won't give me, the same benefits that I have. Right. But maybe it would be so much better than where you are now. And this fear of the unknown, it's a human thing. It's a human nature thing, that we have to have a conversation with ourselves. And so I always talk a lot about the story we tell ourselves. And what is the story you're telling yourself? And the story you're telling yourself is, I can't leave. I can't do anything. I can't make a change because. And then none of that's true, because you can always change, and you can always move on, and, you can certainly be successful. The first practice that I managed, I was there for 19 years. I loved it. I loved my team. I was well paid. But then an opportunity came. And so you have to take the leap. And it was certainly beneficial to me to take that leap. 2008 came, and I lost that job. I was laid off 3.5 years later. But because of the networking, I decided to start my own consulting business. And I've been doing a little of it on the side anyway, because people were asking me for my expertise, Rachel being one of them. And I just called that network of people that I had worked with all those years, the sales reps, the pharmaceutical reps. And I said, hey, here's what I'm going to do. And they went, you know what? We know what you can do, and we're going to put you to work. And that's how I built my consulting business from scratch in the middle of a recession.
What a great story. What a great story. I can't imagine being somewhere for 19 years, deciding to leave that company for a new one just to get laid off, right?
Yes, 3.5 years later, absolutely.
Oh my Lord. Oh my Lord.
Yes.
Well,
And we had just bought a home. So in like it's about 3 or 4 months earlier. So you're just kind of
Wow.
going, whoa, what's going to happen here? It's a little crazy, but
Well,
you
we all
know,
go
it's
through
so,
that. I had
it
my story.
does.
Yeah, we all go through it. If you haven't been through it yet, you will get
You
used to
will.
it. And if
Hmm.
you've been through it once, you've got even more adaptability to get through it again for
That's
sure.
exactly right. Exactly right. It's you know that the end, the bend in the road is not the end, but if you don't make the pivot, it is a fiery crash. So you
Yes.
really have to be okay with that. And you can't. My brother used to say, "Hey, sis, don't let fear hold you back," and that's exactly the truth. So I think about that often. Don't let fear hold you back. Are
Yeah.
you talking yourself out of opportunity? And so many times, yeah, we are, just because of shyness or because of we're afraid that we're going to bother people. I hear that a lot. Oh, I thought I would bother you. You know, I'm a speaker. I'm one of those people who's up there on the platform, and I love it when people come and talk to me. And a lot of people will say, "Oh, I didn't know. I was afraid to come." I'm like, why? I'm just a person, and I
Right.
like to. So yeah, I'm glad. And sometimes there'll be a very short time in between sessions, and I'll have people. I'll say, "Okay, you can talk to me, and I'm glad to talk to you, but you got to follow me to the bathroom. I got 10 minutes." So we walk to the bathroom together, whatever it takes.
Right. Exactly.
Whatever it
Well,
takes.
kudos for the person who followed you. That person was
And
definitely
they
determined to
did.
spend some
They
time with you,
did.
right?
They did. So that's a brave soul that they wanted to learn. They wanted to ask some questions, and that's great. Well, David, this has been delightful, and I really appreciate the information that you shared and your expertise. I will certainly post how to get in touch with you, but I do want you just to let people know how they could reach out to you if they need a good LinkedIn profile, or they want their resume touched up, or if they're looking to change careers. So if you'll tell us the name of your company and how to best reach you.
Yeah, a really great way to get me is on LinkedIn. It might be a good, I might be a good person to reach out to and send an invite to after you update your profile. It's David Pinkley, like the color pink, with an Ley on the end. And my company is The Resume Sage, and you can find me online at Resume Sage. That's resume with the letters SAGE.com on the back end of that. So be happy to receive anybody's call or email or curiosity, and do my best to just offer any feedback that I can for anybody who needs it, particularly right now because the unemployment rate is so high.
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much again. I appreciate your time, and we will. I'm sure we'll be talking again at some point. And have a great rest of your afternoon. I know you have a lot of calls to make, and avoid COVID. And hopefully, we will all get out of the house soon.
Yes, I hope so too. It was a great conversation. I enjoyed it, and I certainly hope anybody who's watching also got some really great takeaways. They remember the ABCs, and to update that LinkedIn profile when they have a chance. But it's been a
Exactly.
pleasure
And
of
you can
mine.
connect to both of us, Debbie Boone and David Pinkley. All right.
Perfect.
Thank you, David.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.